I'm Ashley from Pine Haven Homestead, and I am going to show you a quick and easy sourdough bread recipe that does not require any scales, which is what I really needed. So you're going to need just a handful of ingredients, which I forgot one. Let me go get it real quick. You are going to need sourdough starter, flour, hot water, and salt. And so I'm gonna go ahead and measure out my hot water real quick. I ran my sink so that I'm getting some hot water. As hot as your sink will go is what you need. And you're going to need 1 1/8 cups of hot water, give or take. Okay, so got that ready to go. So now let's get started. I've got my sourdough starter right here, and I am going to measure out about a 1/2 cup. If it's a little bit more, that's great. If it's a little bit less, add a little bit more. So I'm just going to measure out 1/2 cup of my sourdough starter. There we go. And sometimes it gets a little bit messy. And you know what? Baking and cooking is messy, so that is quite all right. So we're just going to measure it out into our mixing bowl. And I use a spatula to make sure I get everything out of there that I can. Okay, that's done. So set that to the side. And now we're going to add in our 1 1/3 cups of hot water into our bowl. If you have a dough whisk, go ahead and use that. I don't. So I am just using my rubber spatula, and I use this the whole time I am making this bread. Okay, so once that gets all blended and incorporated into there, then you are going to go ahead and measure out 3 cups of flour. I'm using organic, all-purpose flour. Sometimes I like to mix it up and add in different kinds of flour. So I'll add in einkorn flour or whole wheat flour. And I usually do 1 cup of the extra flour and then 2 cups of the regular all-purpose. So we've got that put in there. And then we are going to now add in our salt, which is going to roughly be about 1 1/2 teaspoons. And I just use the pink Himalayan salt. There we go. So we've got our flour, our starter, our water, and our salt in here, and we're just going to use our spatula to just mix it all in and get it all nice incorporated. So you do want this dough to be a little bit more on the wet side than the dry side. And I have been making this bread since March of 2021. So that is how long I've had my starter. I got my starter gifted to me from a very good friend. That she made it herself, and it crossed state lines with me and gained about 3,000 feet of elevation, and it is still doing well. It loves this North Idaho weather and air and water. Okay, so I've got pretty much all of the extra flour all blended in here. And so let's go ahead and lift it up so you guys can see. It's a fairly wet dough. It's kind of sticky and tacky, but I have incorporated in all of the dry flour, so it is all incorporated in there. So this has a lot of waiting time, not a whole lot of active time. So I'm going to go ahead and just take off as much of the dough off of my spatula as I can and kind of gather this into somewhat of a round ball shape. Okay, there we go. So that is all that we're going to do. Now I'm going to grab a tea towel, and this is actually just an old sheet that I've cut up, and we are going to cover our bread and let it sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we're going to uncover it, do our stretch and fold, and then cover it again for overnight. It has been 30 minutes, so I am getting ready to do the stretch and fold with the dough. So it doesn't really look like much after the 30 minutes. but this is where we're going to start getting the glutens working. And so to do this, you're going to want to use kind of wet hands to prevent sticking. So if it starts to get a little sticky, just add a little bit more water. And so you're just gonna get your hands underneath, pull up. It's gonna be nice and stretchy, and you're just gonna push to the center, pull up, come into the center. So you're just gonna keep doing that all the way around until the dough gets kind of tough. So this is kind of like you're kneading, and you only need to do it just a little bit. Just pull it up, stretch, and then fold it in. Stretch, and then fold it in. And when it gets sticky on your fingers, you're just gonna get a little bit more water on your fingers and be ready to go. So parts of it are already getting kind of tough. Nice and tough, some soft spots, but you'll be able to feel a difference in the elasticity of the dough. It won't stretch and pull as easily or as much, and so that's how you know that you're pretty much done all of the stretching and folding that you need to do. There we go. So now it looks like a nice little ball. I'm gonna recover it and set it on the countertop for about 12 hours. All day or overnight, depending on when you are making your dough. And so you can put it in a few different places. You can leave it on the counter like I'm doing, or you can, if it's pretty cold in your house and you need to keep it kind of warm, you can turn the oven light on and stick it in the oven. Don't turn the oven on, just turn the light on, and that will be a nice draft-free kind of warm place for it to be. Or if you want it to go for an extended period of time for an even longer ferment, you can stick it in the refrigerator. I haven't ever tried that, so I can't say if that works or not, but about 12 hours on the countertop, covered with just a tea towel wrapped all the way around your bowl should do it. It has been about 12 hours, and you can see that my bread has like doubled, maybe even tripled in size. So what I'm going to do is take it out of the bowl. I'm going to put a little bit of flour down on my board. And then I am going to use a flexible scraper to scrape out my dough. When you do this, you will lose some of the volume from releasing some air pockets. And then our main goal here is to get it shaped into a loaf shape, either like a round loaf shape. So we're just going to kind of do the stretch and the fold again as we tighten up the surface area of our bread. And so we're just taking from the bottom, pulling over and bringing to the front so that we get a nice tight surface. And then once we've done that, then we'll flip it over so that you can see. And then we're just going to shape around again to get a nice tight surface all the way around, kind of in a round circle oblong shape. And we're going to let it rest now for 15 minutes, but we're going to keep it covered, like just covering the bowl over on top, setting it like that, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and do the next step. In 15 minutes, I have my proofing basket here. So what I am going to do is just sprinkle it with a little bit of flour in the bottom. And then I'm just gonna go around and just make sure that all of the sides and the bottom are well floured. And what that does is it helps prevent sticking. Okay, so here's my bread. And I'm just going to, we want to make the top of it super tight, as tight as we can. So I'm just going to kind of it back on itself to get a super tight skin on it. And then we're just gonna flip it upside down and put it in our proofing basket like that. And then put a little cover over it like this. And then we have two options. If you want the bread like right away, then you're just going to let this kind of rise on your countertop for about 2 hours. The bread will be really soft since it's going to be room temperature. Or you can do a longer ferment by sticking it in the refrigerator for like 6 to 12 hours or longer if you want to. And that's my preferred way to do it, is a long ferment in the refrigerator, because then it kind of also firms up your bread so that when you go to do your scoring before you put it in the oven, it scores much better. So this is going in the refrigerator, and I will pull it out this evening probably before I go ahead and score it and put it in the oven. Okay, so I have my Dutch oven preheating in the oven at 450 degrees, and it's getting nice and hot with the lid on. And then I have my parchment paper that I've used for several loaves, just ready right here. And then I just pulled out my bread from the refrigerator. It's been in there for a little over 6 hours. You guys, look at how well that rose. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So remember, we floured the inside of our proofing basket so that hopefully when we go to dump it out, it will come out rather nicely. I'm gonna have to give it a little shake. There we go. And out it goes. So I really like to let it proof in the refrigerator, like I said before, because then it gets nice and firm so that when I go to score it, it will score much easier. And this is where you can get super creative or super basic. You can just like drew just like a line, or you do some kind of creative designs or whatever. Careful, these are very sharp. Okay, so. And you can score however you want. It's super fun. There we go. So now I've got it scored. I'm gonna go grab my Dutch oven out. Oh, just a minute, stay there, just a minute. Okay, just a minute, okay, stay right there. Okay, stay there.
What is that?
I'm doing bread, just a second, okay? Okay, so we got that out, take off the lid, and then we are going to put our bread inside our Dutch oven. Replace the lid, and then stick it in 450 degrees. And I have found that I really like it with the lid on the whole time. So it is going to bake in the oven for 50 minutes with the lid on the whole time at 450. So let's go ahead and set my timer. Okay, I'll get it for you in just a second. Okay, so I'll let you guys see what it looks like when it's done baking. So my oven just went off after 50 minutes with the lid on the whole time at 450 degrees. And I'm going to pull my bread out. It is hot, hot, hot. Okay, I'm so excited for this. You guys ready? Oh my gosh, it is absolutely beautiful. Let me show you guys what we're looking at here. Look at how pretty that is. Okay, I gotta get it out of, let's see here. Please don't fall. Please don't fall. Okay, please don't fall. I'm gonna take it out just by picking up the paper, the parchment paper, as long as it doesn't rip. When you reuse your paper, it does get old and brittle. Okay, it is out onto a, like a cooling rack. And then I am just going to stick this back into the oven to get it out of the way since it's so hot and I don't want anybody to touch it. I'm gonna go ahead. That's a close one. Go ahead and put that in there. And then I'm gonna show you guys this bread. It is so beautiful. Okay, so here we go. Look at that. I'll take it out of the paper so you guys can see this bread. It is super hot. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Super, super easy to make. Okay, so what you're going to want to do after you pull it out of the oven is you are going to want to let it rest for at least 30 minutes. If not, like an hour is probably the best before you start slicing into it, because the crumb is still cooking and developing. And if you cut into it too early, it's gonna get kind of soggy and you don't want that. So just let it sit. It's gonna be so hard, but you can do it. I know you can. And then you're just gonna slice it and enjoy with butter or jam or whatever you want. Okay, just show you guys one more time this lovely bread.